Welcome to WLNM, the web novel and manga review, hosted by Zeke Changuris.
Welcome to WLNM, the web, light novel, and manga review. We are dedicated to bringing our listeners the very special artists and writers that are part of this amazing explosion of creativity, giving us stories to entertain and inspire us. We'd like to welcome Gerry Hines, author of the original English light novel series, Pathology of the Grand Design, Deals with Nature, Integrity of the Super Club, Made from Sapphire, and Perfect World. Welcome, Gerry.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Always love to talk to creators. So, you seem to, from what I'm gathering, from looking at some of your samples of some of your work, you tend to write a combination of romantic comedy and urban fantasy. Is that how you would describe your work, or do you have another way of putting it?
Well, like the best way that I would describe it is mostly like urban fantasy and sci-fi. Just recently I've made the switch to the light novel format. But before that, you can say that I did like young adult or like new adult. And, it's all been like, sci-fi and like urban fantasy or some kind of combination of those. But like my earlier works, they weren't really like full-blown light novels, I guess you could say. They were like anime influenced, but they were more like the American or like the Western style,
Okay.
So,
thinking of
right
that,
now, I've got my Tooth series.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry?
I was going to ask you.
So right now, I've got...
Try that again.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. Talking about how you were starting, and what you were working on when you first started. So what got you started as a writer?
Oh man, this is something that I've always been doing. Just writing and like telling stories. I've been doing it my whole life, ever since I was like too young to question why I was doing it. When I was a little kid, I used to just make like stick figure comics, before I could even write like full sentences. So it was just something that I used to do. And that kind of mentality is just something that's stuck with me all through my adult life. So just something I do.
Some of us are just born storytellers, and we just have all these things in our head that we like to get out.
I think so.
Yeah. So when you said you were writing, your early writings may have been a little bit anime influenced. Now, did you think of it as fanfic? I will admit, probably the first story I wrote, it wasn't fanfic, but it was definitely a Macross-esque style universe that I hashed out when I was in the mid 1980s. So, did you have that kind of influence when it comes to it? Is it almost fanfic? Is it more like just that genre appeal that you try and embody, or tried to embody it when you started?
I've never actually done any fanfic. I was just trying to like embody like the anime style, or like, the kind of stories that they would have in like all the JRPGs that I used to play. So it was really more like the style that I was going for. I never did any fanfic. I know that a lot of people start out with fanfic, and I've actually kind of considered it. I would have to choose, what fiction to go off of. But I would say sometime in the future, it might be just a fun little hobby for me to, get into, kind of keep my creative writing going.
Hey, I am one to... I tell my students, those that like to write, and usually counter anyone, especially on Twitter, who's like, oh, fanfic is crap. Like, it's just writing from a prompt. It's the same as your English teacher gave you. They've given you a scenario
Right.
and a setting and characters, and saying, what can you add to the story? And I think it's a great exercise for a writer.
It can be.
I mean, I have two that are up on a fanfic site that actually did pretty well when I posted them several years ago. and I wrote them because I enjoyed writing in that universe, and it was fun to do.
That's really like the important thing. It's if it's fun, just do it. I don't really know why some people like bash on it. I guess just because it's not like their original idea. But I don't know. I say if it's fun and if it helps stretch your creative muscle, you should go for it.
Yeah. So, what is it that generally inspires you to write? We talked about that it's something that you've always done, but is there any well that you go to gain inspiration?
I'm not really sure. It's just kind of like an impulse. It's kind of like this, something. I just have these stories inside of me, and I'll just get like these ideas, and I'll be like, that's kind of a cool idea. I wonder if I could, build off of it. And a lot of times I'll just take that and just go with it and end up getting like a story out of it. And then, once I get that ball rolling, it's pretty hard to stop.
Well,
so I just get stuck in it, and I just keep doing it.
Do you start with the world, or do you start with characters?
Sometimes both. I would say definitely, my original stories, before I was doing light novels, those were more like a world at first. Get like the idea for like a premise or something, and then start to, figure like, okay, what kind of characters can I have, go through this. But recently, with my 2 light novel series, these have been, focusing on the characters first, and then building off everything else.
Okay, yeah, I know there are some writers who build obsessively world build, and then drop average person A or B into that world and see how they react. It's in some ways a more challenging way to write, because if you don't have a fleshed out character in the beginning, you may not have one at the end either.
Right.
Well, so what out of your series, what's the favorite universe that you've created?
Easily, I would say The Integrity of the Super Club. So that's my rom-com, and out of the 2 series, this is the one that is, a lot more of like a light novel. And it's also the only story that I've done that doesn't take place in like, quote unquote, the real modern world.
Okay.
All of my other stories are kind of like the urban fantasies or like sci-fis, and they take place in some like, modern American setting. But with my rom-com, Integrity of the Super Club, it's just like a whole different place. So I have like complete freedom to like just do whatever I want. It's still like kind of like a modern society. It ended up like accidentally becoming kind of like a satirical modern society. It's not really what I was aiming for, but it kind of like became like that a little bit. And so that they have like smartphones and like a lot of like modern day stuff. But I also try to incorporate like societies and cultures from all around the world into this little place that I made. And so that's why, they measure everything with like the metric system, or like a lot of their like foods and like common like street vendor fare are all things that you would find in like Japan. And so it's just kind of like a meld of like modern society with like a little bit of a satirical spin on it. And I can do whatever I want.
You're the writer. You can always do whatever you want.
Oh, yeah.
So when you're creating these things, do you have trouble sometimes? I love this question. Do you ever write yourself into a corner?
Oh, man. Yes, I do. That's honestly probably my biggest problem that I have to try and overcome. I know that if I can, stop writing myself into all these dead ends, I'll be a lot more efficient as a writer. But I don't know, like it's really common for me to like create like these, I guess you could call them like logical problems in my story. Like I'll write something early on, and then like later on, you're like just writing further into something and realize, oh, I just made like this whole like arc based off of something that, couldn't have happened. So I have to go back and try and like rewrite it and figure out what's going on. So, and I don't know, I've tried like plotting and like outlining and trying to like, figure it out beforehand so I don't do this. But I'm beginning to think that if I do that too much, that's part of the problem. Because some of my earlier stuff before the light novels didn't really have that problem. And that was just, like discovery writing, just get the idea, go with it, write it from start to finish, maybe like have a couple of plot holes here and there, but not like huge, big, obvious story-breaking things. So, yes, I have the problem of writing myself in the corners.
Don't feel special, because we all do. Trust me, we all write ourselves into corners. But it is just, it's part of the struggle that makes it interesting. Did you, so do you try mapping everything out ahead of time, or are you more of a discovery writer and seeing where it takes you?
I kind of think that I'm somewhere like in the middle. With Anno Domini, that was more of like the heavily plotted one. At least with like these first two books that I have out now, I'm probably going to give myself a little bit more freedom, because I'm learning that, writing The Integrity of the Super Club, it's easier for me to just have like a little bit of like an outline or like a backbone that I stick to. But with the discovery writing, I feel like things like flow better, and things don't really feel forced or contrived, or I end up writing myself into some pre-planned corner.
Yeah.
But so far with my rom-com, and this is kind of an example of just how this discovery writing can like change things. So far, I'm still sticking to like the main outline that I had mapped out, but this was supposed to be like a single standalone novel that I'm working on, just to try and get away from my main series, Anno Domini, and I'm right now planning part 4 of this series. So it's still sticking to the plan, but it's definitely taking its own turn.
So, do you find it easier to write dialogue, or are you a setting or omniscient writer where you do a lot of narration on what things are doing, what is going on?
I think I'm pretty good at both. I do both, and it kind of depends on like the scene or like what's going on. I do have a lot of just like dialogue heavy scenes in all of my stories, but at the same time, I like to do just like a lot of like the narrative and explaining things, because sometimes I feel like I might just have these characters ramble for like too long. Like they're explaining important things, but I'm like, can I just like sum this up, or like like explain like what's going on in the environment? So it's both of those that I really try to do my best at. And I know that like light novels really focus a lot on dialogue, so I'm trying to like focus on that too and try and make that better, and just all around trying to make it all better.
So in this process, do you, on the opposite side of the coin of writing yourself into a corner, do you ever write something that surprises you? Do you ever end up in places you didn't expect?
Yes, that happens happily more than writing myself into corners. It's pretty common for like a character to like develop kind of how I expect it to, but much better. Or like I'll have a few things going on with the plot, and I'll realize like, hey, I can have these things kind of come together, and it just works out better than what I thought it would. Or something totally new can crop up, like a side plot or like some aspect to like the world or the environment, like something. And it just always surprises me. And that is probably the most fun part of discovery writing, I think, is these surprises where it's like, man, I didn't think I could be this good. Here it is.
So, what's your favorite kind of scene to write? Are you good at? Do you like writing action? Do you like writing setting the stage? Do you like writing the interactions?
I would say probably the character interactions are the most fun for me. That kind of ties into like all the dialogue that I tend to do, and so yeah, I would say like just how characters build their relationships with each other and just the things that they do. But also, I have a lot of action scenes, and they're like a totally different pace, but it's kind of like a different kind of fun. Because, I can kind of like, all right, these characters aren't really supposed to be talking this much. They're doing stuff. So I kind of like visualize like what they're doing. And I would say as fun as that is, it's probably not quite as fun as like just characters talking to each other. It sounds kind of boring, but I think that's my favorite part.
The when you're okay, were you a natural? I've been trying to explain this to some kids. You're not everyone who's a writer was naturally gifted as a writer. You can be great at storytelling, but when it comes to putting that on paper and having sentence structure or
Writing them than like speaking about them. It's kind of this joke that I say where like, I talk good, but I write well. So I can always say that even though the stories were there, I was also very lucky to be able to convey these stories on paper also. So, like grammar and stuff like that, I feel like I'm pretty good at grammar and like sentence structures. Not quite as good as like an editor would be, but I think for like the average layman, I have pretty good understanding of like commas and like semicolons.
yeah, I've edited quite a few paragraph long sentences. So, but a lot of times, even though they're high school kids, they're still learning. So you just got to let it go.
Right. Yep.
So, what authors have been your biggest influence?
Well, that's a big pool to choose from. I would say, well, like first early on, it was probably like comic books, like newspaper comics. So like Calvin and Hobbes and Garfield were like my jam when I was a kid. And then, really, I haven't really read too many actual Japanese light novels. So, I kind of am falling short in that aspect. But let's see.
Well, the question was what authors do you admire, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a light novel author.
Yeah, I kind of like Bret Easton Ellis, author of like American Psycho and Less Than Zero. Just I'm not really sure like what it is about his writing. I honestly think he has kind of like a terrible writing style because it's all like telling and like no showing. But I think it just somehow works so well with what he does because he just writes like really messed up things, and like his style is just kind of like this raw, like a documentary form, and it's just I don't know, it's just weird, and so he's definitely one that I like. I would say Edgar Allan Poe is one of my favorites for sure. And like a little bit of like H.P. Lovecraft also. And I would say like those are my big ones.
Yeah, I always tell people that F. Scott Fitzgerald was always one of my greatest influences, in that I really appreciated the stories he could tell in if you notice, none of his books are long. Like Great Gatsby is not that long of a novel, but it is an amazing novel, and he does such a good job at creating a world and creating characters that you like in a standalone piece, and in somewhere around 100,000 words. It's always fascinated me that the simplistic styles that he used were so captivating, I guess is the term. I've always been a Fitzgerald fan, but there's so many in modern day that I read a lot of. I mean, I read a lot of light novels, that's for sure. And then Gail Carriger, who writes the Soulless series, among many others, she's been one of my favorite authors in the modern era because her writing and dialogue are so witty and punchy.
Yeah.
The so do you watch a lot? Do you watch any anime? I generally ask this question. It's not.
I watch a ton of anime.
Okay, so what would you say? Who's your favorite? Who you watching?
Man. So that's kind of a loaded question because like there's so many different ones that I like. I like all different kinds of genres, all different kinds of like styles, like visual, like storytelling styles. I would say though, one of my favorites is Lucky Star. I don't know, like there's just something like goofy and like oddly humorous about it. Like it's so slice of life, but it always brings me up. It always makes me feel good. And so that's definitely like one of my favorites.
We all need one like that.
I also like a lot of like the more like, I guess you could say like cerebral or like darker ones too. Like Ergo Proxy, like Elfin Lied, some of my favorites. Steins Gate, I know is a favorite among the original light novel community. But I think the first time I saw Steins Gate, I must have gave it like an 11 out of 10 or something. Like it just blew me away. So like that, Guilty Crown is one of my favorites. And Madoka Magica. Like I also like the just crazy, like etchy, goofy ones too. Like this over the top harems, like High School DxD is a great one. And even like the middle of the road, like rom-coms, like Toradora and Pet Girl of Sakura So are like some of my top favorites. So my tastes are like all over the spectrum, and I try and put that into my writing.
Well, hey, it's good that, to like multiple genres. And I mean, I tell a lot of people that I've never seen a bad anime, just one that doesn't appeal to me, because
right.
There are so many that I know. I mean, they're good. I may not have liked them, but there's nothing that invalidates them as a piece of entertainment. I mean, I'll say,
right.
And though, I mean, I'm an open advocate for. I 100% love and adore and watched 1,000 times. Sakano, How to Raise a Boring Girlfriend. I think it's one of the smartest, wittiest deconstructions of the harem genre that anybody ever put out there. And
I haven't seen that one.
How to Raise a Boring Girlfriend. There are 2 seasons and a movie. The movie is not yet available. Aniplex, if you're listening, please release the movie on DVD, because
please.
We haven't. Those of us who did not live in Japan couldn't watch it. I can't even get a pirate version of it yet. So I need them to release a copy of it, because the dialogue is very witty. It's a deconstruction of the harem genre. The biggest complaint people have is they don't like the MC, but the MC is intentionally the way he is because he's supposed to be a harem MC, which is generally kind of flat. and all the
Right.
characters are archetypes, and they, in a way, they know they are the archetypes. So it's very funny. I definitely recommend watching that. If you like good writing, it's spectacular.
Oh man, I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, How to Raise a Boring Girlfriend. The first season is on Crunchy, the second season is on Prime, and like I said, there's a third, but it's there's a movie that is the final, and but that's not out yet. So, but yeah,
I'm making a note right now.
yeah, Saekano, Saekano, or How to Raise a Boring Girlfriend. And hands
All
off,
right, note taken.
and hands off the waifu of the twin-tailed sundry. She's mine.
Oh man, I was gonna have to go to war.
Yeah, I love my twin tails, so you know.
I think a lot of us do.
Yes, yes. Or like, and the most underrated twin tails, gotta be the Twin Tails, the anime. That's just funny in itself, but yeah. A boy who gets superpowers, but he gets those superpowers when he magically transforms into a twin-tailed redhead.
Oh man,
It
sounds crazy.
It is crazy and it is funny. Well, let me wrap this up. We can see your books on the web at gerryhinesofficial.com. And if you want interactions, we can see you at Gerry Barry Hines on Twitter. And I say this at the end of every broadcast. I can't tell you how exciting it is to live in an age where creators are able to access the market and get their stories out there without the impossibly high bars that the major publishing houses set. I think all stories are valid.
Absolutely.
All stories are valid, and you can find an audience for your story. It just takes a will to write it and put it out there. And that is one of the bravest things that anybody will ever do, is when they take their work and they put it out there for others to look at. But it is also an amazing thing. So I'd like to thank you, Gerry. If you're listening, I'd like you to take time to subscribe to WLNM, where we hope to continue to highlight the best independent creators have to offer. Until next time, keep reading.
This has been a WLNM podcast.